He saved tens of thousands of lives, and then he simply vanished. In the final days of the war, in the ruined city of Budapest, a Swedish diplomat named Raoul Wallenberg had accomplished something extraordinary, defying the machinery of murder to protect an entire community of people marked for death. He had handed out protective documents, established safe houses, confronted the killers face to face, and pulled people from the very edge of destruction. And then, at the moment when his work was done and liberation had come, he disappeared, taken into custody by the Soviet forces that had entered the city, never to be seen again by the outside world. What happened to him remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of the war. But what he did before he vanished stands as one of the most heroic rescue operations of the entire conflict. This is the true story of Raoul Wallenberg, the man who saved so many and then disappeared into history. This is a story about heroism and mystery, about a man who risked everything to save others and then met an unknown fate. It is a story about the extraordinary difference that one determined and courageous person can make, about the lives saved through audacity, cunning, and moral resolve. And it is a story grounded in the documented historical record, the true account of a diplomat whose actions in the final months of the war saved a great many lives and whose disappearance has never been fully explained. A reference is provided in the description so you can verify these facts for yourself. To understand the magnitude of what Wallenberg accomplished, you have to understand the desperate situation in Hungary in 1944. Hungary was home to one of the last large Jewish communities in Europe that had not yet been destroyed. But in the spring of 1944, Germany occupied Hungary, and the machinery of destruction was turned upon the Hungarian Jews. Under the direction of the Nazi official responsible for organizing deportations, Jews were rounded up and deported at a horrifying rate, sent to the death camps in occupied Poland. In a matter of months, hundreds of thousands of Hungarian Jews were deported, the vast majority of them murdered. It was one of the most rapid and intense episodes of destruction in the entire Holocaust. By the summer of 1944, this wave of deportations had claimed the lives of hundreds of thousands, and the surviving Jewish community was concentrated largely in the capital, Budapest. Nearly 200,000 Jews remained there, and they lived under the constant threat of deportation and death. The authorities intended to deport them as well, to complete the destruction of the Hungarian Jews. For these people, trapped in Budapest under the shadow of imminent death, the situation was desperate. They needed help, protection, some means of escaping the fate that had already befallen so many of their fellow Jews. And it was into this desperate situation that Raoul Wallenberg came. Wallenberg was an unlikely hero. He was a Swedish businessman and diplomat, a member of a prominent Swedish family, a man whose background gave little indication of the extraordinary role he was about to play. But he was recruited for a special mission to travel to Budapest and do what he could to save the Jews who remained there. Sweden was neutral in the war and maintained a diplomatic presence in Hungary, and this provided a framework within which a rescue effort might operate. Backed by international support and funding, Wallenberg was sent to Budapest in the summer of 1944, given diplomatic status, and charged with the task of saving as many Jews as possible. He arrived in July, a man of about 30, taking up a mission of extraordinary difficulty and danger. Now, this account is grounded in the documented historical record, preserved by institutions dedicated to the memory of the Holocaust. What follows is drawn from that record. The core is thoroughly documented. Raoul Wallenberg, a Swedish diplomat, did indeed carry out an extraordinary rescue operation in Budapest in the final months of 1944, saving a great many Jews through protective documents, safe houses, and personal intervention. And he did indeed disappear after being taken into Soviet custody in early 1945, his fate never fully explained. The details are recounted to honor his courage and convey the significance of what he did. Wallenberg's principal tool in his rescue effort was the protective document, a paper that placed its holder under the protection of neutral Sweden. He designed and issued these protective passports, documents that declared their holders to be under Swedish protection, and he persuaded the authorities to recognize them. These documents, though their legal basis was questionable, provided a measure of protection to those who held them, marking them as people under the protection of a neutral country, and thus, at least in theory, not subject to deportation. Wallenberg issued these protective documents on a large scale, far beyond what had originally been envisioned, working to place as many Jews as possible under the protection they offered. He had arrived with a few hundred such documents authorized, but he expanded the operation dramatically, issuing thousands. Beyond the protective documents, Wallenberg established a network of safe houses where Jews could find refuge. He acquired buildings throughout the city and placed them under the protection of neutral Sweden, flying the Swedish flag over them and declaring them to be Swedish territory. These safe houses, dozens of them, provided shelter to thousands of Jews, protected by their status as extraterritorial Swedish property. Together with the safe houses established by other neutral countries, they formed a protected zone, a refuge within the city where Jews could shelter from the danger that surrounded them. Wallenberg also established hospitals, soup kitchens, and other facilities to care for those he was protecting, building an entire infrastructure of rescue and relief. To carry out this enormous operation, Wallenberg built a large organization, employing hundreds of people, many of them Jews, who were themselves given protection through their work for the Swedish mission. This organization enabled him to issue the protective documents, manage the safe houses, and carry out the many tasks involved in the rescue effort on a large scale. Through this organization, Wallenberg was able to extend his protection to a great many people, to build a rescue operation of remarkable scope and effectiveness. His organizational skill, his ability to build and manage this large operation under the most difficult conditions, was a crucial element of his success. But Wallenberg's heroism was not confined to the issuing of documents and the management of safe houses. He also intervened personally, directly, and courageously to save lives, confronting the killers face to face. When Jews were being rounded up for deportation, when they were being marched off toward death, Wallenberg would appear, asserting his authority, claiming the people as protected by Sweden, using every means at his disposal to save them. He went to the trains and the assembly points and the death marches, distributing protective documents, pulling people from the grasp of their captors, using bluff, persuasion, and sheer audacity to save lives. He confronted armed men, risked his own life, placed himself directly in danger, all to save those who would otherwise have been lost. The situation in Budapest grew even more dangerous when a fascist regime seized power in Hungary, unleashing a reign of terror against the Jews. Under this regime, Jews were killed in the streets, subjected to horrific violence, murdered in large numbers, and a series of death marches was begun, in which Jews were forced to march on foot toward the border under brutal conditions. Throughout this period of intensified danger, Wallenberg continued his rescue efforts, following the death marches, to distribute food and protective documents and to extricate people from them, continuing to shelter Jews in his safe houses, persisting in his efforts to save lives despite the increased danger. His courage and determination did not waver even as the situation grew more perilous. To carry out his rescue efforts, Wallenberg employed a range of methods, including some that went beyond conventional diplomacy. He used bribery, cajoling, and paying off officials to achieve his ends. He used bluff and audacity, asserting authority he may not have truly possessed, claiming people as protected when their status was questionable. He used persuasion and threats, reminding officials that the war was turning against Germany and that they would be held accountable for their actions. Whatever means might serve to save lives, Wallenberg was willing to employ, showing a resourcefulness and a willingness to take risks that were essential to the success of his operation. He was not bound by convention or caution, but was driven by the single-minded goal of saving as many lives as possible. The results of Wallenberg's efforts were extraordinary. Through his protective documents, his safe houses, his personal interventions, and his tireless work, he saved a great many lives. His protective passports alone are estimated to have directly saved on the order of 15,000 to 20,000 people. And beyond those he saved directly, he was a central figure in the broader rescue effort that helped preserve the larger Jewish community of Budapest. When the city was finally liberated, more than 100,000 Jews remained alive there, a survival owed in significant part to the efforts of Wallenberg and his fellow rescuers from the neutral countries. Whatever the precise number attributable to him alone, there is no doubt that Wallenberg saved a great many lives, that his efforts made a profound difference, that tens of thousands of people owed their survival to what he did. And then, at the moment of liberation, when his extraordinary work was done, Raoul Wallenberg vanished. As the Soviet forces entered Budapest in early 1945, Wallenberg sought to make contact with them, apparently hoping to discuss the protection and welfare of the Jews he had worked to save. But instead of the cooperation he may have expected, he was taken into Soviet custody. On a day in January of 1945, he was last seen in the company of Soviet officials, and after that, he disappeared from view. He was never again seen by the outside world, his fate becoming one of the enduring mysteries of the war. What happened to Wallenberg after his disappearance has never been fully established, and it remains a subject of uncertainty and speculation to this day. The Soviet authorities detained him, apparently on suspicion of espionage, perhaps because of his connections to Western interests. For years, his fate was shrouded in mystery, with the Soviet government offering little information. Eventually, it was claimed that he had died while in Soviet custody, some years after his disappearance. But this account has been questioned, with reports over the years suggesting that he may have been alive long after the date given for his death. The exact circumstances and timing of his death have never been definitively established. Decades after his disappearance, he was at last formally declared dead, but the mystery of what truly happened to him endures. The disappearance of Wallenberg adds a tragic and haunting dimension to his story. Here was a man who had saved so many lives, who had displayed extraordinary courage and humanity, and yet who met an unknown fate at the hands of those who should have recognized him as a hero. The injustice of it is striking, the irony painful. Having survived the dangers of his rescue work, having defied the machinery of murder to save others, he was taken by the very forces that had liberated the city, and he vanished into an unknown fate. The mystery of his disappearance, the uncertainty of his end, has troubled and fascinated people ever since, a haunting coda to a heroic life. What does Wallenberg's story reveal about the nature of heroism and the difference one person can make? First and foremost, it demonstrates the extraordinary impact that a single determined and courageous individual can have. Wallenberg was one man, but through his courage, his resourcefulness, and his tireless effort, he saved a great many lives. His story is a powerful example of the difference that one person can make, of the way that individual courage and determination can accomplish extraordinary good even in the darkest of circumstances. It reminds us that individuals are not powerless in the face of evil, that one person acting with courage and resolve can save many. The story also illustrates the importance of moral courage, of the willingness to take risks and to act decisively in the service of what is right. Wallenberg placed himself in danger again and again, confronting armed killers, asserting authority he may not have possessed, using every means at his disposal to save lives. This required extraordinary moral courage, a willingness to risk everything for the sake of others. His story is a powerful example of this courage, of the boldness and resolve required to stand against evil and to save its intended victims. He did not shrink from danger, but embraced it in the service of his humanitarian mission. Consider, too, the resourcefulness and creativity that Wallenberg brought to his rescue efforts, the willingness to use unconventional methods to achieve his ends. He designed protective documents, established safe houses, employed bribery and bluff and audacity, adapted his methods to the changing situation, did whatever was necessary to save lives. This resourcefulness, this creative and flexible approach to the challenge of rescue, was essential to his success. His story illustrates the value of resourcefulness and adaptability, of the willingness to find creative solutions and to use whatever means are available in the pursuit of a vital goal. Wallenberg was not constrained by convention, but was endlessly inventive in his efforts to save lives. There is a profound lesson here about the value of a single human life and the worth of efforts to save even one person. Wallenberg saved a great many people, but each of those people was an individual, a human being with a life to live, a person of infinite worth. His efforts and the lives he saved remind us of the value of each human life, of the worth of every effort to save even one person from destruction. In a time when human life was being destroyed on an industrial scale, Wallenberg's efforts affirmed the value of each individual, the worth of saving each person. His story is a testament to the preciousness of human life and the nobility of efforts to preserve it. It is worth reflecting on the way that Wallenberg's story combines inspiration and tragedy, heroism and mystery. His rescue efforts are deeply inspiring, a testament to human courage and goodness. But his disappearance and unknown fate add a note of tragedy and mystery, a haunting uncertainty that lingers over his story. This combination gives his story a particular power and poignancy. an intertwining of the inspiring and the tragic that makes it all the more memorable and moving. Wallenberg is remembered both as a hero who saved thousands and as a man who vanished into an unknown fate, a figure of both admiration and sorrow. Wallenberg's heroism has been recognized and honored in the years since, a fitting tribute to his extraordinary courage and the lives he saved. He has been honored in many countries, recognized among the righteous who risked their lives to save Jews during the Holocaust, memorialized in various ways around the world. This recognition, though it cannot undo the tragedy of his disappearance, ensures that his heroism will be remembered, that his courage and his sacrifice will not be forgotten. His name has become a symbol of humanitarian courage, of the difference that one person can make, of the willingness to risk everything to save others. The story of Raoul Wallenberg stands as one of the most inspiring and haunting stories of the entire war, a testament to human courage and the difference one person can make, shadowed by the mystery of an unknown fate. It demonstrates the extraordinary impact of a single determined individual, the power of moral courage, and the value of efforts to save human life. And it stands as an enduring tribute to a man who saved so many and then vanished, whose heroism illuminated the darkness of the war, and whose disappearance remains one of its enduring mysteries. His legacy lives on in the many lives he saved and in the inspiration his courage continues to provide. So remember Raoul Wallenberg, the man who saved so many and then vanished. Remember the desperate situation he confronted, the community of people marked for death, and the extraordinary rescue operation he mounted to save them. Remember his protective documents and his safe houses, his personal interventions and his confrontations with the killers, his resourcefulness and his courage. Remember the tens of thousands of lives he helped to save and the tragic mystery of his disappearance, taken into custody at the moment of liberation, never to be seen again. And remember the profound truths his story reveals about the extraordinary difference that one courageous person can make, about the power of moral courage and resourcefulness in the service of what is right, and about the enduring value of every human life affirmed by a man who risked and perhaps gave his own to save so many others.